the Chief Justice and the President of the Supreme Court, Honorable Mother Koome, the Deputy Speaker of the National Assembly, and my teacher, Honorable Gladys Boshole, the Attorney General of the Republic of Kenya, Honorable Dorcas Oduor, the representative of the Committee of JLAC, the Registrar, the IG, the PS, and the leaders who are present. Good afternoon. Good afternoon once again. I know that a lot has been said. I am privileged to be speaking after a number of representatives of the ministry have spoken, the PS, Correctional Services, the IG, and so I hope to make just a few more remarks to crown what they have already said. But let me start by appreciating the Chief Justice as the chair of this NCAJ for inviting me to this very important meeting. And I believe that in my 1 year in this ministry, actually 11 months, this is my first interaction of this nature. And I hope that in the remaining period of time of service in this ministry, I will have an opportunity to interact even more with you, because that is extremely important in terms of facilitating rule of law. Our arms of government are like the legs of a stool, each critical in its own way, but not useful without the other. The judiciary, the legislature, and the executive should complement each other for the proper functioning of our democracy. Our ministry sits in the core of the justice sector with the National Police Service, Kenya Prison Service, Probation and Aftercare Service, National Crime Research, and the National Crime Research Center being the principal members of the National Council on the Administration of Justice. When the National Police Service makes an arrest, that is just the beginning. Their investigations becomes the foundation of the Office of the Director of Public Prosecution and the courts. When a judge delivers a verdict, the Kenya Prison Service, Probation and Aftercare Service take over to rehabilitate and reintegrate offenders back into society. Why do I say all this? I say this today because I want to stress the fact that we are a system of justice. The criminal and justice system are not as separate institutions operating in isolation. We are one system serving the Kenyan citizen from the beginning to the end. When one part of the system stumbles, the whole system feels it and becomes ineffective. When we work together, justice moves forward and works better for the people of Kenya. I am therefore pleased to be here today for the launch of the Administration of Justice in Kenya Annual Report 2024-2025 and the Justice Sector Monitoring, Evaluation and Learning Framework. While this report is a statutory requirement, it also more importantly fulfills our solemn promise to the people of Kenya for justice they deserve. I am glad to see the NCAJ model bringing together everyone, including state institutions, the Law Society of Kenya, and civil society organizations. We need each other. We need LSK, we need civil society to challenge us and to remind us what we should do better. This should not be seen as an interference, but it's an opportunity for us to see as a high level of accountability in our country. This annual report shows us what we have accomplished and what we still need to work. But today's launch on the Justice Sector Monitoring, Evaluation and Learning Framework is equally important because it will help us measure something Kenya are deeply care about, the speed of justice in Kenya, the delivery of justice in Kenya. Let us be honest, Kenyans are impatient, and rightly so. When someone reports a crime, they want the action. When a case goes to court, they want it resolved. When someone serves their time in prison, they deserve a genuine chance at the rehabilitation and a new start of life. In the recent trip we did around the country to assess our performance in the Ministry of Interior National Administration, we called it Jukwaa la Usalama. I realized something very fundamental. The common citizen down there they really don't know what is the role of the police, which one is for judiciary, which one is for DPP, and which one is for the prisons. Prisons, at least, they fairly understand. But for the investigators, the prosecutor, and the judiciary, they confuse all of it, and they want government to serve them. In fact, they do not know. Sometimes when you arrest somebody and they are released the next day on bail, they quickly blame the police officer. They say the police officer is very corrupt. That person was released immediately, and that they must have paid a bribe. When they are presented before court and they are entitled to bail, for many of them, they think that as soon as someone is presented before court, today they will be incarcerated, and the rest of the decision, they are not entitled to any bail. So they will be remanded until the day they are convicted. And they wonder why this is being debated. So at the end of the day, when someone is taken to court and then they are released on bail and they come home, the first thing they do is that this government is corrupt. And they do not know the Chief Justice. They only know that the government of William Ruto is corrupt. It has nothing to do with the judge. It has nothing to do with so they know only one government and one country. And I think this is the reality. I mean, sometimes we are lawyers, we are, speaking a lot of good English in courts and in such fora, but the reality on the ground is that people do not know the so-called separation of powers. Important as it may be in terms of functioning, they know that we are one government, one country, that they expect justice from us. And therefore, this should really, really be a basis for all of us to come together. When the Judicial Service Act speaks of efficient and effectiveness, these are not just buzzwords. They mean delivering results quickly, meaning speedy investigations, prompt trials, and effective rehabilitation. This is because delayed justice is not just only frustrating, but also very dangerous. The rising cases of mob justice is basically as a result of frustrated population, that they want justice immediately and soon. And so it is very dangerous for law and order and for the well-being of the country. If they feel that justice system doesn't work, they become impatient. And then you see rising cases of mob justice across the country. In fact, I dare say some of the mob justice cases are actually encouraged by the police, and I am admitting from a point of knowledge, because the police will tell the citizens, you think you will get justice? This thing will drag in court for another 10 years. Tafuteni njia ingine bwana jiokoe. And njia ingine, they don't say it, but they are actually encouraging that if you can sort this matter, then it will be better. In fact, in most cases where people are arrested, taken to court, they are released, they are taken to court, they are released, there are high chances that the police actually will be probing the public to say, do something. And then they will come back and do investigations. And when you tell them, when will they, when you ask them what is the status of this matter, they say investigation is still ongoing. Which is the statement I read every time I go to Parliament, and the most repeated statement is investigations is still going on. So it's important to expedite processes of justice. Otherwise, it can destabilize a country and it can lead to a disorderly nation. When cases drag for years, public confidence in the justice system is eroded. When the guilty walk free, communities generally feel abandoned, and when rehabilitation fails, then the cycle continues. I know we don't always agree. Sometimes the ministry questions why certain cases move slowly. Sometimes it's the courts that question why police take time to investigate a matter. Sometimes correctional services wonder why they don't get enough resources. But this is what I want to emphasize today. We need to strengthen our partnerships. A nation is not made peaceful by force alone, nor more laws alone, but by harmony between both. Security without accountability diminishes justice. Justice without security cannot flourish in any country. You can carry a court order actually around, and if you don't have enforcement mechanism and a secure nation to enforce a court order, then it can be a beautiful piece of paper without a proper secure nation that can actually turn that court order to become proper results. So we have cases where people have very good court orders about going back to their farms or, taking back their property and so forth. And if you don't have a proper, if you have gangs occupying somebody's land in Machakos, for example, or somewhere in Nandi or Kisumu, and you have a beautiful court order and the police are unable to remove those gangs, and because of breaking of law and order, then it becomes very dangerous for a nation. And really, that is why I continue emphasizing. I wonder, there used to be a principle in first year law class, especially Constitutional Law 101, that a judge always is alive to the circumstance they face, and therefore they take what is called judicial notice. And it's assumed that judicial notice doesn't have to be brought up by any lawyer or a litigant in court. The judge should just be alive to the fact that, because we live in this society, if there is a flourishing of the many gangs in the country or people burning property, you don't need anyone to alert you to say that if you release this person back to the society, there is a fear that the particular situation will continue. So judicial notice is also very important. And it's also important to just know what's happening around, And you can only know that if we can talk. It doesn't have to influence your decision per se, but it helps you to make sure that you have a role beyond just making pronouncements. You have a role to ensure that the society is safe. I don't want to, let me just say this. I learned one thing, Madam Chief Justice, let me say this, that politics is the most hardening profession. Very. In fact, if you want to hire a very hardened person to do a very difficult job, just get somebody who has ever been elected before and survived an election. In fact, if they get re-elected, the better. And that process, once it hardens people, you can handle anything. I found sometimes that because judges and advocates and journalists are fairly shielded from criticism on this part, they are the most sensitive people. The slightest of criticism of an article that has been written by a journalist, they become extremely irritated. If you criticize a judge for his decision, it is always considered the worst sin. In fact, it is almost considered that you are interfering with judicial independence. But we get criticized all the time, caricatured, our children are mentioned, people say that we will visit them, Anguka Nayo and all that. And we keep just, moving and moving. And I think that, I hope that there will be a training somewhere that can help the other arms of government to go through this same process so that we can all of us accept to sit together and critique the decisions we have and we make so that we can make our country a better place. So when we identify problems, let us approach them as partners. Police reforms must continue to emphasize service, partnership, and professionalism. An efficient police service makes the entire justice sector more efficient. But that efficiency starts with how officers treat citizens are the first point of contact. There goes, and also that goes with the courts. Quick, well-reasoned judgments don't just resolve individual cases, they also help deter future crime and send a message that justice works. An effective correctional service that actually rehabilitates offenders prevents tomorrow crimes today by breaking the cycle of repeat offenses. Ladies and gentlemen, as you may be aware, we ended our national-wide security and service delivery dialogues known as Jukwaa la Usalama. To make just three, I just want to make very, very few remarks or lessons that we learned from this process. Number one is that we cannot survive or operate in isolation. We cannot continue protecting our turf. In fact, Chief Justice, I think we need to amend, even though the Attorney General said that we have too many laws, we need to amend the National Council, the Principal Act, which is the Judiciary, what's it called? Judicial Service Act, yes. The Judicial Service Act, Section 37, or prior sections, I think 35. We need to, the court users committees need to be strengthened. I realized from the Jukwaa la Usalama that some of the problems that are bedeviling the nation is because at the county level, and I dare say even at the sub-county level, there is a very poor interaction between the security, the sub-county security team or county security team, the judiciary, and the DPP. And sometimes the back and forth is because the DCI officer who is doing the investigations, there's a DPP sitting somewhere waiting for the file, and then, you know, there is no interaction, there is no conversation. Then the matter is called to court, and because there is no general conversation around with the magistrates, there is a dysfunctional system in the county. But I found it very interesting in a place, for example, in Vihiga, where people are praising the magistrate, that we are working together with the magistrate and we've been able to reduce cases of gender-based violence, especially defilement in that particular place. And in some areas where the court users committees are working, the delivery of justice is really wonderful. Part of the reasons why people are refusing to work together, you will shock you. You will find in our ministry, the chiefs are supposed to work with the OCS, but they refuse to work together. And we found in one of the counties, I think it was Kakamega, in a place in Butere, that the chief says the real reason why they're not working together is not because of even their big persons, no. Because you work in silos so that you collect your bribe independently, you know? So if they end up working together, you know, so everybody's saying, I'm the one who is in control. You know, I'm the one who's control. If the police officer, the OCS is telling the chief, telling the brewer of the illicit, whatever, changa and so forth, illicit alcohol, he's telling them, don't worry, that chief has no powers. Wewe tu akushike, akulete hapa, I will release you, you know? Because he knows, so he's telling this one, don't pay the chief. Just pay me, I will allow the chief to bring you here, I will release you, you will go. We also found in some cases that it is the DPP wants the DCI to continue struggling at the corner there on his own, and then when he brings the file, because the DPP officer at that level has been compromised, he will not approve prosecution. So no matter what the DCI has done, even if he has done a very good job, the DPP is not approving. Meanwhile, in some cases, the magistrate has already been compromised on the other end, even if a matter comes before court. So some of the reasons why people are not sitting together is because if they sit together, there will be greater accountability and corruption will be dealt with. And I think it is time we need to strengthen the court users committees and bring them together so that we can resolve problems that are affecting the people of Kenya. And the IG will tell you, there was a time the administration police officer and the National Kenya Police Service officer were not working together. But when him and his team tried to push them to work together, there were greater results and so forth. And they learned from how the DIGs at the national level are working together. Now, those people, the court users committees at at the devolved units down there will not work together if they think the Chief Justice cannot see eye to eye with the Speaker of National Assembly or with the President or with the Minister of Interior and so forth. So we need to sort our problems here so that they know down there that accountability, we expect accountability from them down there. And that's the same. If the IG is not seeing eye to eye with the chair of IPOA, there's no way the police officer down there will cooperate with the IPOA officers during investigations. And the same. So we need to foster close working relationships. Number two is that there is lack of honest feedback, you know, and we need to sort this issue. I want to challenge the judiciary to do what I did, you know, and call for, I went for 48 meetings across the county, and OCSs were telling us to the face. You know, some of them telling, Ministry, you have failed us. IG, you have failed us. The IG was being told to the face, how can you transfer somebody to Tana River and stay there for 15 years? How can you punish officers? How is the police station like this? How can you give us only fuel, 450 liters, and expect us to serve them? To the face. And some of the things now we are working on, the reforms, came from the stakeholders from the ground. Citizens in this Jukwaa la Usalama forum were telling the OCSs, they were even telling us openly, this OCS is very corrupt. You know, this one, it takes bribes. And others were saying, please don't transfer this OCS. It's one of our best OCSs in this area. And some of the changes IG has done is as a result of this direct interaction. I want to dare the judiciary to hold only 1, 2, 3 public barazas in every county. You will be shocked, Chief Justice. I want you to take one day, call a big baraza in somewhere in Laikipia, and sit down and tell wananchi, 1 to 1,000 people, just talk about judiciary here. You will be shocked about the feedback, and it will help you to make things better. The reason why in the past we have not made progress in the security sector and the judicial sector is because we have shrouded it in ministry. We clothe ourselves and say security is very, you know, is a very guarded area. We can't just parade the IG out there. It is important for us to look for honest feedback from the members of public. Number 3 is that we must face corruption directly and on the face. We should not hide. The question of corruption is in all the sectors. There are magistrates who are corrupt, there are judges who are corrupt, there are police officers who are corrupt, there are prison officers who are corrupt, there are ministers who are corrupt, there are PSs who are corrupt, and we need to face it openly without hiding and defending our places. And then the underfunding thing is cross-cutting across. The judiciary is underfunded. The police are underfunded. Some of police stations are too old. They are not functioning. We don't have vehicles that are serving the magistrates and so forth. And that's serving the judiciary, the administrators, and many, many others. So it is something that I agree entirely with the report that, with the report that there is underfunding. And you know why? During budget cuts, and this parliament should hear this, the places quickly where we lose money is this sector, because their money they don't look like a road, a water sector, a budget. Their budget looks like, you know, training. They say cut training first. Then we come back and say our police officers during Mandamano, they are unable to manage the crowd. But you removed their training money. They've never been trained for 10 years on how to handle crowd. They don't know how to do this. You know, capacity building and many other issues. So our money look like soft resources, but that they're extremely important in this sector to maintain law and order. Please, Parliament, let's work together with the Treasury to make sure this is sorted. We also realize that we need to discuss this bail terms issue and the operationalization of Article 49 properly. There are cases where people are being held that should be released, but in most cases we feel from our side that people are being released who should be held, especially people dealing with gangs, drugs, trafficking, persons, and gender-based violence and defilement. From our Jukwaa la Usalama, many citizens think that suspects for defilement, because they are either chiefs, they are teachers, they are pastors, they are influential people in society. They should be held in remand as they weigh their decisions. And I think this is a discussion the judiciary needs to apply their mind, especially when it's drugs and it is, I'll conclude one more, but let me say this story. ACC, which is Assistant County Commissioner, previously at DO, told us in Murkomen that they arrested a serious drug trafficker, took him to court. The public were very happy. They even praised and celebrated the administrators and the police. But the next day, the magistrate, I think, sentenced to community service, the suspect to community service. And then, you know what happened? He was posted to come and work around the ACC's building. So when wananchi passed around, they said, kumbe ule mtu tulishika, huyu anaenda kupikia chakula, huyu dio. They never understood that they were serving community service. It's something we need to discuss and work on. And lastly, digitization is a sector that many Kenyans really appreciate. The judiciary want to congratulate you, Chief Justice. You are ahead of the rest. And that's why we are working very hard in the prisons. We lost lives in between the road between Baragoi and Maralal because prisoners were being taken to court in a situation where perhaps if it was a virtual court, we would have avoided because the road was already dangerous with bandits on the way. And it is important to note that digitization will make a big difference. We're working with the police service to make sure that we have digital OB, the instant finding system, and so forth. This is a subject that also this committee should work on. I think if I continue reading this page, I'll take too much time, and you will not like me on my first day. Let me say that I'm very happy to be here. I look forward to a stronger partnership between this ministry and yourselves, and let's work together. I think, as my last closing remarks, I think, and this is for our judges, I think a judge, and being a member of this profession, is properly trained and sufficiently confident, doesn't fear even sitting with the president, doesn't fear sitting with that opposition leader, because they know that they are guided by the law when they make their decision. But this idea that if you see the Chief Justice sitting with the president or sitting with a leader of opposition, they are having a chat, you make an assumption that, they are already compromised. It's the very reason why people are closing themselves in different areas, because they fear that if they sit in a particular place, they will be compromised. That is the same reason why the president of the Law Society of Kenya ran away from this committee to solve problems, because as soon as her name came out, they say she's been compromised. We cry that we want justice for the victims, for people who are downtrodden. And when we pick people like the president of the Law Society of Kenya to come there and resolve those issues they have been criticizing government for, then we're criticizing them for being there to act. And I think it is unfortunate. We need to make sure that we are properly trained as lawyers to interact with anybody, including across the, a lawyer for the defendant and for the applicant are always taking tea together. And so why not? Why can judiciary and the executive and the legislature sit down and thrash out issues that will promote justice in our country? I thank you. God bless you.
Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, did you know that the NCAJ was established in 2011 under Section 34 of the Judicial Service Act? It was formally launched on the 11th of August 2011, and it provides that the Chief Justice shall be the chair of the NCAJ, and it is for a reason. The Chief Justice is the head of the judiciary. She is also the head of the NCAJ, and she's the chair of the Judicial Service Commission. Particularly as the head of the judiciary, because the role of the judiciary in a democracy is to uphold the Constitution and to protect the rights and liberties of the people by impartially resolving disputes and ensuring that laws are applied fairly. It acts as a check on the executive and the legislature. And I'm sure wherever the Chief Justice is speaking wearing those three hats, Kenyans would like to know from me whether the judiciary